Hello, good morning. We're going to be working on building a personal portfolio page. And again, this project is based on freeCodeCamp.com. It's one of your first projects that you do after your Tribute page, which is just assembling some simple HTML and CSS. So I want to go over a few things with you, namely how we're going to be using a navigation bar, how we're going to be using Bootstrap, and actually a little bit of jQuery as well. So I just want to go over a bunch of that stuff with you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and jump right in. So let's share this and let's go here. So in case you haven't done so yet, we're going to be doing these projects in CodePen. So you can see codepen.io. It's my username, and this is just the name of the page. All right, so for yourself, you want to get yourself starting off with a blank document. And what we're going to do is we're going to be making something like this that has a nav bar at the top that kind of clicks through to different areas, has some contacts, and various navigation pieces in here, and I have CSS, JavaScript, that sort of thing. All right, so that's pretty good. So that's a good overview. Now, in case you are not completely clear on a few things, HTML is the basic framework. Think of it like an outline to your English paper or anything like that. That's what we're going to be filling in later, right? That's just our framework or our outline. Our CSS is how we style everything. And then our JavaScript here, and that's how we make things happen dynamically. Like if you want to like click on something and have a script run, something like that. And even if you haven't gotten into coding that far where you're into scripting, I'm just going to show you some small things that you can do that'll be pretty helpful. So the first thing that we notice is we have nothing but a blank white page. Here's HTML. So if I start typing something here, all right, you notice that letters pop up here. All right. So, okay. So that just means as I type in HTML, that populates this down here. But we have, there's more than that with HTML. We have certain keywords that we can use. And what those keywords will do is they will allow us to generate things like bodies or divisions or put links or make a certain section or a certain word so when you click on it you go somewhere either within or outside of the web page. And so if you've already started going through the HTML and CSS sections, or maybe a freeCodeCamp, or maybe you just want to get started building a basic portfolio page and you have no idea where to start, we need to understand that we have things called divs, which are just divisions in your page, different sections you want to break this up to. We have a body, which is the main body, and which is the entire page itself. And then we have some tags at the top. And those tags at the top are head tags we're going to be using a little bit later on. And in freeCodeCamp, one of the first tags that you use is you're copying and pasting in a link. And in that link, it's to a Google API. And what that Google API is just for a specialty font called Lobster. And you copy and paste this right out of freeCodeCamp, just like I'm going to copy and paste it off mine. And this is what it looks like. So just like you're going to do right out of freeCodeCamp, I'm just going to copy and paste it right in here just to show you how this just kind of gets stuck right at the top of your HTML. And notice that you start with these greater than, less than signs here, all right, or those arrows, and that lets HTML know that you have some code coming or keywords coming. So that's what those are. And this one says it's a link, all right, and it's a style sheet, and the type of style sheet it is text or CSS, which is how we style things. href, which is means you're going to go to a link, and the link you're going to go to and find is fonts.googleapis.com, CSS, family, Lobster. All right, so fonts, and the font is Lobster, and it's a Google font, so you can use it. So we're just going to use that font because it's something that hopefully you're familiar with. The next thing that we want to do over here is, after you sort of set up a header or any header that you need, is we need to establish different sections. All right, so different sections of our page that we want to break this up into. All right, so the first section that you should know about is the body. All right, and so all the body is the main portion. So if you're going to start a body, all right, so that's how you start a section, and this with a slash is how you end a section with the same word. So now everything that's in between here and here, all right, is going to be within the body. So the body is going to contain this. So this is just a container. All right, well, it's not an actual container. It's actually a different syntax. But everything that I put in between the body, so body to body, is going to be considered the body of our page. And that's going to become a little bit more important later when we start thinking about how we're going to style this and where we want our backgrounds and stuff to be. So I'm just going to start off with that, with a body. And another thing that we want to really think about is we want our web page to be dynamic. What I mean is when the screen sizes change, all right, from big to small, I want our everything on our site or our page to automatically sort of change size. And in order to do that, all right, in order to do that, we need to go up here into settings and we need to enable Bootstrap. All right, Bootstrap just gives us a bunch of shortcuts for code to allow things to happen. So when you load up Bootstrap, when you load up your web page, the page itself goes and accesses a ton of code somewhere else that somebody else wrote for you that we can use, and we just access it using a few keywords, which is kind of cool. So under CSS here, you can go to Bootstrap, and then save and close. And what that allows us to do is to create a within our body. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of some of this. All right, so everything in here is going to be within the body. So that was just more for demonstration purposes, okay? So generally everything just kind of comes in, and when I hit return here, you notice that's indented a little bit to kind of let everything sort of line up to let us know, okay, we are actually inside this body. So I'm going to create a div, all right? So a div is just how we break things up. And I'm going to give it a class. So say a class is what we use to style it, all right? So when we say class equals, all right, and then we hit either a single or a double quote, all right, that means that the page is going to look for a styling class, whether that's in the CSS over here, or it's in a separate file, or if it's in a separate group of files somewhere else that gets loaded with your web page. So I'm going to call this container fluid. All right. And what container fluid does is it automatically changes everything on our web page and scales it with the screen size. All right. Now there is just container that you can use within Bootstrap. And here's some documentation for Bootstrap. We're going to come back later for cards and stuff. But just know that the container fluid itself is generally what I end up using. And so since we opened this div, I'm going to have to close this div. And there's a slash to close it. All right. And now you notice as I touch this one, you can see where it opens. Or if I see this opening, it'll show me where my body closes. And I want things to go inside of this fluid container. So now I have a body, which is my entire web page. And inside that body, directly inside that body, I have one large div that is just a fluid container that automatically changes sizes regardless of the screen size of whoever is going to be accessing this. All right, and then we can kind of see some of that as I move the screen around a little bit later on. And again, this is just some stuff that that you go over in freeCodeCamp. So if you haven't done that yet, this might not look too familiar to you. So that's just Bootstrap for you. The next thing I want to do is I just want to get a background and a navigation bar right now working before we get too far into anything else. So I have a body, all right, and I have a fluid container. Now, how do I put an image here? Now, there's a bunch of ways to put an image there, but I want to walk through, and I'm going to do it with a little bit of JavaScript and jQuery and CSS, and I'll show you how to get this stuff done. So I'm going to go into settings again, and I'm going to go into, this time, JavaScript, and I want to enable jQuery. So here's jQuery. jQuery is a basic JavaScript. Think of it almost like an add-on. So it's another big bunch of code that somebody else written that we can just use keywords. So instead of writing out a whole bunch of code, I can just write a keyword and it automatically does what I want it to. And it's just a lot shorter and easier to use. The next thing that we want is, if you've tried this before on your own, I'm sure you've had some issue with the background image. So placing a background image on, or just copy and pasting that in different ways, or maybe you used HTML to do it, maybe you use CSS to do it. And as you go full screen with your website, sometimes you'll see it'll tile or pattern, or your background will just not come out looking right. It won't stretch to the full size of your screen. So what I did is I just Googled, how do I get a full background on my screen here? And what I found was a chunk of CSS code that says, as long as you put your background in your body, and you can establish a background right here in your body tag. All right, so this I just found right on just by Googling this chunk of code. All right, and I copy and pasted that in. And if you notice, the background is going to be no repeats, it's just going to be stretched, it's going to be centered. All right, and both your X and Y direction, and it's going to be fixed to the center. And here you go. And these are for your different web browsers. All right, so like the Firefox and Opera, and I forget what the other one's for. Exactly. That just makes sure that you have a completely covered background. Now, also with background, you can actually type in here like a URL, and you can add a URL to an actual picture. So I'm going to start off with that. So now I have a body, all right? And this body, notice how it doesn't have any dots or anything. It just says body. That body represents this body over here. So it says CSS or styling. Look at the body tag. So here's my body tag. And I want the font family to be Lobster. And well, what is Lobster? That's not a default font, no. But in the head, it says go to Google and find Lobster for everything that's in the body. All right, pretty simple, which is everything that's on the page. And then it gives me some information about a background, but it doesn't tell me what the background is. All right, so that's okay. So what I want you to do is I want to talk a little bit about what this JavaScript is. So JavaScript, we can make other stuff happen. So we can add in scripts or make other things happen, like animate buttons and that sort of thing. So I'm going to go into my JavaScript, and remember, we enabled jQuery, which means that we can use a bunch of different shortcuts, and you can Google jQuery and learn a lot more about it and go down that rabbit hole if you like, or you can kind of just follow along and trust what I'm saying, that this works. All right, so let's say that I have a background image, or I want to use multiple background images because maybe I'm setting up a template for myself, or maybe I'm actually going to enable a full website later and I don't want to have to change a bunch of code. So I just want to use jQuery to give me a list of backgrounds that I can just change one number, and then it'll automatically blip to the next background. So that's what I'm going to do. So all jQuery starts with this $, all right? And then you have to write function, all right, for like an anonymous function, and open, close parentheses essentially there. And then when you're writing this, so you notice that we have, this says function, and that's how we're going to denote function. And you have an open and closed parentheses here right by this $, which means we're inside this $. And then after a function, when you're writing some JavaScript, you always have these curly braces. All right, so this is going to look kind of funny. And everything here goes inside of these curly braces. All right, so this is where all of my jQuery is going to go. All right, so that's just a good start. And I turned off my autosave. And a lot of times if I'm doing stuff in JavaScript, I'll actually turn off the auto update as well, because it gets kind of annoying. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to have a variable, and I'm going to call that variable background image. So background, I'll call it background image. And I'm going to set that equal to an array. All right. And I'm going to populate this array in a minute, but I'm going to end my sentence with a semicolon here. But before I even do that, I'm going to come down a little further. So I have a variable called background image, and as you can probably assume, this is where I'm going to link to all my different background images that I might find somewhere else, for like my entire website. This becomes really handy later on in later projects when you do something like this. So inside of this jQuery function, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a jQuery, or tell jQuery to do something else. And what I want it to do is I want jQuery to find my body. All right, so find my body tags. But I want the body that look for. Do I want it to look for in HTML or CSS? Well, I want it to look for the CSS, which is this stuff over here, which is this body right here. And I want to add in a background image. So I have to figure out what background image is. So it's pretty simple. It's background dash image. And I had forgotten, sorry about that, I've forgotten to put this in quotes. Don't forget your quotes. That's why it's not, there you go. There's my quotes. All right, so that goes in quotes. So background image. And then background image not YRL, URL. All right. So you just kind of see what I'm typing here. What I'll do is I'll slide some of this over so you can kind of get a better look. Background URL plus I want to add in this background image here. And I'll explain what I'm doing. Backgrounds img, and that should turn blue because I'm accessing this variable. And now this is going to be an array. Okay, notice that this is an array, open and close, open and close. And an array is a zero-based index, which means the first thing I put in here is going to be index 0. And then if I place a comma, then put something else in there, all right, that will be 1. Then if I put another thing in there, it'll be 2, even though it's the third thing that's in there. It's a zero-based index. Okay? Plus, there we go. And then I have to end that, and I have to end my sentence there. And that should be right, I think. So body. So it's going to go to this body in my CSS, and it's going to add something in, which is background image, and then URL. And then notice that my URL here is going to be in an opening and closing little parentheses here. And then you're just going to put a link in. All right. So that means my array here is just going to be an array of links to images themselves. So let's go back and take a look at some images. I already Googled some images, some random images here. And since my last name is Snow, I decided to go with some snow images, And notice that this isn't just a page on Google that I said copy the thumbnail. I actually went to the image itself. I made sure I could click on it and it gets through your work or school firewall. So I can actually just copy this link to the actual link that I want. And here's my array. And so the very first thing I put in my array is going to be the 0 index or the beginning. And I'm just going to paste that in. All right. And now if I scroll up, you'll see that I have that background image. All right. And let's say I want a different background image. So I'm going to hit comma. And I'm going to add in a new background image. So I'm just going to Google puppy. All right, I'm going to go to images. I'm going to go to, look, English Bulldog. Oh, that should be good. I'm going to go to tools, size, large. And let's say I want cute Bulldog puppies as my next background. All right, so let's see. This guy's pretty cute. I'm trying to see one that's the right. Let's go with this guy here. I'm going to view the image, make sure it goes through. All right, that should be good enough. I'm going to copy that. See parentheses, or quotes, open and close that. And so now if I want to change my background image, all right, on the fly, I can go through and gather all my images. So now if I change this from 0, which is the first thing in my array, to a 1, oh, I switch pictures. Check that out. So now I can go through and I can switch backgrounds, and this background is going to stay no matter what size the page is. So if I go to full page, you notice that it doesn't tile or anything. It looks actually really nice. That's a really nice puppy. So I'll go to editor view. All right, and I'll just go back to 0. All right, so it's a 0-based index. So this is index 0. This is index 1. So index 0 up to this comma. Then the next thing will be index 1. And there's my background image. So now I've got JavaScript using jQuery. I've got CSS styling my HTML. So that's all I have. I have a head tag which says use lobster. And so if we go inside this container now and I start typing, all right, you'll see that I get some lobsterized fonts, and there we go. So there's a basic beginning of how we can use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript jQuery all together to generate a simple web page. This one is just an image. We're going to be doing a lot more to this in the next video. So I figured this will be good for now. Just a quick overview of what all this stuff does. And then we're going to start framing all this stuff out and using Bootstrap, navigation, cards, and that kind of stuff later on. All right, so hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you next time.